New Zealand Warriors women. They are starting to build a squad. But I need to introduce the Bulldogs women's team, as I tend to do, at the same time. Because I'm going to talk about the Warriors squad, and I'm also going to talk about the Bulldogs squad quickly, and then get into some St. Thomas and Canterbury updates. I need to introduce the Bulldogs at this time of the yarn because everything the Warriors are doing, the Bulldogs are also doing. And everything the Bulldogs and the Warriors are doing, every NRLW team is doing. So, you can look at the headlines and think, wow, the Warriors just signed another Black Fern 7 player. They signed a Black Fern. Oh my god. Oh my gosh, most of their players have rugby union backgrounds. Well, there's no headlines about Martha Mataale, former Black Fern, signing with the Parramatta Eels. There's not as many headlines about the Bulldogs building out their first NRLW squad, with almost half of their squad coming from Aotearoa, many of whom have similar backgrounds as the Warriors women's squad. So you can look at the headlines, you can look at the way this is delivered in the media, but know that the Warriors aren't doing anything unique here. There is the wrinkle, though, that the Warriors are able to sign players from Australia without any worries. We've seen this on the men's side. They just signed Sam Healy, young hooker from the Sharks. They were able to get Jet Cleary across the ditch. They were able to get Luke Hanson across the ditch. Luke Metcalf, another young half who moved to Aotearoa. There's the experienced lads, Kurt Capewell, Mitchell Barnett. But there's also the youngsters that the Warriors are able to recruit from Australia who want the opportunity to come to New Zealand, come to Mount Smart and represent the Warriors. The Warriors are able to do that as well. In their first couple of waves, they had Emanita Paki, who was a Queensland representative. In the third wave of signings, they had Emily Curtin, who was a young half, 23-year-old half from Australia. And Coach Ronald Griffiths talked about her defensive mindset. So that's going to be useful. I think the other Australian-based players, I think we got Falila Kia. She played with Griffiths at the Knights. So Griffiths is using his back-to-back NRLW championship pedigree with the Knights, as well as being an Indigenous All-Stars coach. He is able to recruit players from Australia. The third wave of signings, we got Michaela Eli, kind of a playmaker, edge forward from Manurewa, who was playing with the Manly Sea Eagles this year in New South Wales Women's Premiership. Kaylin Takitumu Cook, she came up through Manakura, played league for Richmond. I think she's an outside back. We got Peyton Takimawana, she was playing rugby for Bay of Plenty. I think she's going to be an outside back. Taisha Ikanasio, Black Fern Sevens, also played a bit of league for Richmond though. Think she's going to be an outside back. Michaela Blyde from Black Fern Sevens, from the Taranaki, Clifton Rugby. She could be an outside back, but I also think she might have a bit of halves mahi in her potential. We got Mariri Pukitapo from Te Araha in Wellington. I've got her as a small forward, utility forward. Lavinia Kitai, think she's an Australian. Middle forward, we got Lydia Turoa Quedle from Ponsonby. Bit of a half. Kaya Atai from Richmond, she's in the forwards. And Danny Gray from Mangere East, she's on a development contract and she's going to bolster the halves depth. There's a lot of outside backs, a few halves options, not many hookers. So I'm curious if one of the we might see one of the players I mentioned as a half. They might cover the hooker. But there is this idea about a lack of middle forwards for the Warriors at the moment. Maya Hill Moana and Harata Butler are ruthless middle forwards that I think are going to be the cornerstones of this Warriors forward pack. Both are from Taniwharo in the Waikato. So watch out for those two. I think they are two of your three starting forwards in the middle are those two. And then you've got someone like Lyshawn Albert Jones could play as a lock. You got Fotu Moalas, who is a prop, and Matakino Gray is a lock edge forward as well. So the consensus I got with the feedback, people bouncing back to me about the Warriors squad, it did seem like there was a lack of middle forwards, but I think they're well stocked. Of course, you've got like 10 more spots up for grabs, so you're going to add players. But the two players I'd watch out for, Maya Hilmawana and Harata Butler. Hilmawana, who knows what was happening with the Roosters at the end of the year, because she also dropped out of the Kiwi Ferns squad. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but she's a consistent NRLW Kiwi Ferns big bopper. And Harata Butler's just a ruthless forward who has gone the hard way to get opportunities with the Sharks and the Cowboys. But then we got the Bulldogs, who just signed Moana Courtney from North Harbour Rugby. So again, the Bulldogs, they signed a player from Rugby Union in New Zealand. So far, the Bulldogs squad, we have Alexis Tauiniai from Wainuiomata, Angelina Tiakaranga Katoas from Auckland, Saracen Olivers from Petone, Ma'atuleo Fotomoalas from Otahu. We got Shanice Monchel from Mount Albert, Shokela Mahakita Monchel from St. Peter's, Cambridge, Shannon Murus from Mount Albert, Paya Uilo is from Katikati, who went to Auckland Girls Grammar, and Moana Courtenay from North Shore Rugby Club. That's, what do we got? 9 players right there. And I'd say conservative estimate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At least 5 of them played some form of rugby union in New Zealand. So I want to broadcast the fact that NRLW is making significant inroads into rugby union for women in Aotearoa. Given the state of how rugby union is being run in Aotearoa, I might also suggest that we are seeing the demise of rugby union in Aotearoa, especially on the women's side. But I will chill out and I'll just say that most of these players play a bunch of sports. They're multi-sport athletes. There were better opportunities in rugby union before, so most of them played rugby union. Now there are better opportunities in rugby league, so most of them are playing rugby league. That just seems more sensible than my dramatic hot takes. But the Bulldogs, they've got all that. Like the Warriors, a lot of them played rugby union. Most of the players from Aotearoa who the Bulldogs have recruited for their NRLW team next year, they also have rugby union background. So that's a crossover. But you've also got the fact that like almost half of the Bulldogs squad is from Aotearoa. So that tells you about the status of women's rugby league in Aotearoa. Because 2 of them have played for New Zealand. Shanamuru was in a Kiwi Ferns squad, I think, and is a Tongan international. Like, a few of them have played for Tonga, but all these players come from Aotearoa, but there's only 2 Kiwi Ferns, which means the Bulldogs are going deep into their Kiwi NRL Wahine recruitment bag to sign these players. There was also a post from St. Thomas of Canterbury College, who listed all their players who have come through the school and are now in NRL clubs. So there's a few like top tier lads, Jordan Ricky Broncos, we've got Oliver Lowry with the Seagulls, Felix Fa'atili and Richie Tupuaile from the Sharks. Josiah Ekihard Nelly is with the Storm. We all know Josiah Alatini, he's with the Bulldogs. But there's a couple of dudes, so Ezekiel Whangaiti and Jackson Stewart, they were in the Warriors system this year. Now Ezekiel Whangaiti is with the Knights. Jackson Stewart is with the Roosters. So the fact that those 2 dudes have been picked up by other NRL teams at the same time as we've got the Bulldogs setting up a partnership with Canterbury Rugby League, the Roosters setting up a base at Rolleston College, and we've also got Xavier Lynch. He is signed to the Knights. So the Knights have recruited a couple of players from St. Thomas of Canterbury. The Sea Eagles also have Ezekiel Paulo from St. Thomas of Canterbury. So you got the Bulldogs and Roosters who have set up some sort of a connection with rugby league in the South Island in Canterbury. But then we've also got the Knights and the Sea Eagles who have recruited players from St. Thomas of Canterbury. And there's obviously other players who play rugby league who didn't go to St. Thomas of Canterbury who are signed to NRL clubs. This is just the St. Thomas of Canterbury bubble. So that tells us there's 2 clubs who have heavy-duty connections to rugby league in Christchurch, and there's 2 other clubs who have recruited players from the best rugby league school in Aotearoa from Christchurch. And then you've got the Roosters who have come in and signed Jackson Stewart, who is a very good outside back. You include, yeah. So that tells you that there's 3 or 4 different clubs who are aligned with the status of rugby league in the South Island. But you also got the Warriors, who have Lennox Tuiloma. They got Bishop Neal, 2 fantastic young rugby league players. The Warriors also have Jason Salalilo, who I think was in the train and trial group. Mehana Pauling, Micah Sula, Isaiah Savia, Kenny Lafituanai, Caleb Fidel, Cristiano Elia. Cristiano Elia is a very interesting one because he's a half who was in the under-16 New Zealand Rugby League schools team, but he was starting half for St. Thomas of Canterbury. And the Bishop Neal was the only other dude who was in the under-16 team who was a big Donny for St. Thomas of Canterbury. Most of the big Donnies were playing under-18s. So there's a lot of NRL clubs recruiting talent from Christchurch, setting up the links there. But you've also got the Warriors with 10 players from St. Thomas of Canterbury currently in their system. So the Warriors are getting their fill. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about nothing because it's Christmas.